Do you think that the president has taken the right steps with Canada in regards to the bridge, and do you think that it should open on time?
Well, the president's attitude to Canada is they are an important ally. They're an important trading partner, especially for folks in this region of our country. But Canada has taken advantage of the United States of America for far too long. And they've taken advantage of the United States in a couple of different ways. Number one, they have allowed us to subsidize their entire military, their entire security. Canada pays virtually nothing, at least until a couple of years ago, for their own security, which means we had to foot the bill for that security. Is that fair to you and your kids that you have to pay for the military of a foreign country? No. So the President of the United States said to the Canadians, number one, you guys got to take your own security more seriously. You're always going to be an ally, but why don't you have a little bit more self-sufficiency? And I think that makes complete and total sense. The second thing the President said is, if we're going to be true friends, you have to treat our workers as fairly as we've treated Canadian workers for 40 years. Again, we have let so many people over the entire time that I've been alive take advantage of the United States of America. The President said, if you're going to apply a tariff to our goods, we're going to start applying a tariff to your goods too. It's basic fairness. And that's what we've done, and our hope with Canada, and I think we'll get there eventually, is we're going to get to a point where Canada treats our workers fairly, we treat their workers fairly, and they're going to be a true ally and a true friend, not somebody who's taken advantage of us, which is what they've done for most of my life. Thank you. Next question.
Will Jones from Local 4. With the ongoing war with Iran and the recent attack that you just mentioned on a synagogue not too far from here, what is being done to keep Americans safe here at home?
Yeah, a very good question. I believe that Tulsi Gabbard and John Ratcliffe are actually testifying before Congress right now to talk about some of these issues. So let me just say that it is an obsessive focus. Threats are where people might attack innocent Americans and what we can do to address it, to get ahead of it, and if, God forbid, something does happen, to respond to it as quickly as possible. And there's a whole host of things that happen. Look, we're monitoring, some classified stuff, some phone calls, things like that, so that we can try to figure out acts of terrorism in the United States of America. We've got the FBI searching for people who have come in, usually illegally, to the United States, to get illegal criminals out of our country, because those are very often America against our people. So there's a lot that we're working on. Administration, we've got murder rates as low as they've ever been, but the only way to stay ahead of this stuff is to keep vigilant about it. The unfortunate reality is there are outside of our country who are trying to come in. They're always going to be there. What you need your government to do, what you should expect your government to do, is to stay on top of it and keep you as safe as possible. That's what we try to do every single day.
Colin Jackson, Michigan Public Radio Network. We're seeing ICE expanding its presence in South bases in Southfield. And I'm wondering what words you would have to say to community members who may be concerned that this might lead to an increase in aggressive immigration tactics like we've seen in Minnesota or Chicago.
Well, what I'd say is that ICE is a very simple job. Agencies, the various, three-letter agencies that exist within the federal government, it's to make people safe. And ICE in particular is trying to get violent criminals out of the United States of America. People who have no legal right to be in the United States of America, the best thing they could do is I always find it a little bit weird when congressional Democrats or others say, how dare you, and then the thing that they're so offended by, how dare we? That's exactly what we should be doing. That's what we promised we would do. Protect the American people. You heard the last questioner, asking justifiably about how we're keeping people safe. One of the ways that we keep people safe is by making sure bad people are outside of our country rather than inside. But on this issue of, they're worried about, I forget how you phrased the question. You said they're worried about aggressive enforcement. We have had ICE and immigration enforcement operating in 50 states, in red states and in blue states, in very, very blue cities and very, very red cities without any incident. And the two exceptions, maybe three exceptions, are where? Minneapolis, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Because in those three states, not cooperate with getting violent criminals out of our state or out of our city. Now, I don't understand that. If I'm living in suburban Minneapolis and I find out there's a sex offender, illegal alien living 3 blocks away from me, I'm going to be calling the police and saying, get this person out of my country. But unfortunately, you've had some governors and a couple of mayors who have said they're going to do everything possible to create civil strife by blocking immigration enforcement. Do is just tell your local leadership that you want them to cooperate with getting bad people out of the United States of America. So long as we've got the cooperation and so long as we're working as a team, the chaos that you see in broken and dysfunctional political leadership that tries to stop us from doing our jobs.
Detroit News newspaper here. There's a lot of concern and talk in Michigan right now ahead of this pivotal midterm election that the federal election here in this state. Do you have any promises that you would make that the federal government will not intervene in any way in this election, or what would
Federal government intervening in the election? That's the first I've ever heard of it, but maybe I don't understand your question.
I believe the president has talked about nationalizing, it's state.
Well, if what you mean by intervening in the election is that we want everybody to have a voter ID before voting in this country, yeah. I mean, if by what you mean is, Marco Rubio has like 5 jobs, is the president going to send Marco Rubio to Michigan to be a ballot counter as his 6th title? I don't think so. I haven't talked to the president or Marco about it. But look, there's a lot of scare tactics, and there's a lot of scary language floating around there. The president and I have been working very hard, and we actually got a good vote yesterday in the United States Senate on the Save America Act, which is a very simple piece of legislation that does a number of things. But one of the things it does is actually establish this very simple principle that if you're going to vote in a federal election, you ought to show identification before you do so. So no, we don't want to intervene in elections, but we certainly want to make elections safe and secure. Number one, because we want to make sure that the will of the voters is actually recognized and respected. But think about this. We've got an illegal alien shows up and votes in a Michigan election. That isn't just fraudulent, and that isn't just illegal, that's for less. If you believe, as I do, that to believe that their vote should be protected, and the only way to fully protect their vote is to prevent fraudsters from coming and voting in American elections.
Leads Michigan Advance. Joe Kent resigned from his post over his objection to the war in Iran. He was among those Republicans who was pretty dedicated to Trump's agenda of that coalition over the war. And what can you say to those who deeply believe in the president's agenda but are really worried about the consequences of?
Nobody likes war, right? And I guarantee the President of the United States is not interested in getting us in the kind of long-term quagmires that we've seen in years past. I know the president. I know the way that he thinks about America's national security. That is not a risk with this president at all. What he has also said consistently and he's willing to take action, diplomatic, ideally, but military action if he has to make sure that that doesn't happen. That's all this is about. We don't want the Iranians to have a nuclear weapon. The president's been clear about this, and that's what led to the president's decision of, about 3 weeks ago. Now, you ask about Joe Kent. Now, I know Joe Kent a little bit. I like Joe Kent. You heard the President of the United States say yesterday that he likes Joe Kent, too. But it's one thing to have a disagreement of opinion. I know the president very well. He welcomes differences of opinion. He likes it when people express their views about what should happen. He listens to everybody. It's one of the great things I like about him is that whether you're the gardener at Mar-a-Lago or whether you're the Secretary of the State, the president cares about what you think about an issue. He recognizes that everybody has smarts and everybody has wisdom. That said, whatever your view is, when the President of the United States makes a decision, it's your job to help make that decision as effective and successful as possible. And so the president implement the decisions of his administration. He has the right to make those decisions. Then it's a good thing for you to resign. And I think that's exactly right. It's fine to disagree. But once the president makes a decision, it's up to everybody who serves in his administration to make it as successful as possible. That's how I do my job, and I think that's how everybody in the administration should do their job too. So let me just say this on a closing note here. You know, we're here in the great state of Michigan. I'll head back to D.C. this evening. But I just want to say that I know that you guys are the people who actually make this country run. You know, a very formative moment for me, just for a lot of reasons, in part because all of our leaders went completely insane, was the COVID pandemic. And remember how they shut everything down? And I kept thinking to myself that I knew a lot of people who worked in manufacturing. I knew a lot of people who continued to go to work because they didn't have any other choice. And frankly, while the United States of America would do just fine with a few fewer people on Wall Street on Microsoft Excel, America doesn't do fine at all if our manufacturers and the people who build and make things don't show up for work and make sure that America has the stuff that it needs. So one of the ways that we think about our administration, one of the ways that we think about our goal is that we serve you. You fought for us for long enough. We have to fight for you. You've done your job for the United States of America, and you're going to keep on doing it. It's time to have a government that works for you. Now, I mentioned this earlier. For my entire life, the story of my hometown was another factory closed, another place that provided good jobs to the moms and dads of my friends was going overseas, another family that faced financial stress because mom or dad lost a job was getting divorced because of the financial pressures created by stupid policies coming out of Washington, D.C. And I just want you to know, I said this the first time I ever spoke as the vice presidential nominee, and I'll repeat it right now, I will never forget where I came from. Part of what we're trying to do, the biggest part of what we're trying to do, is stop the bleeding and reverse it to where factories were closing down for my entire life. Now factories are being built back up. Where engine manufacturers were shutting down shifts, now they're adding shifts. Where people are hiring instead of firing our great American workers. That is what we're trying to do in the Trump administration. In 14 months in, I think that we've got a lot to be proud of and a lot to build on and a lot to keep working at. But I just want you to know, thank you, but I just want you to know that no matter what you see come out of Washington from the crazy radicals, no matter what the media reports on and tells you, the President of the United States sends this message and the Vice President of the United States agrees with it wholeheartedly. You are the beating heart of the United States of America, and the Trump administration will never stop fighting for you every single day. God bless you all, and thank you for having me.